Have you ever noticed that for many people, starting over has quietly become an exhausting habit? The year changes, the promises change, the plans change, the language changes. But inside, something remains exactly where it has always been. And that is why, after a while, everything begins to feel strangely familiar. The excitement fades, discipline becomes heavy, motivation fluctuates, hope, so alive at the beginning, slowly dissolves, almost imperceptibly, until it becomes just another attempt archived in memory. Perhaps you know this feeling intimately. You tell yourself, this time it will be different. This time I will succeed. This time I will try harder. This time I will be stronger, more focused, more faithful, more consistent. And for a while it works. But then something invisible happens. Something pulls you back to the same internal point you have always lived from. And no matter how many times you try, no matter how many strategies you apply, no matter how many plans you build, you feel as though you are always starting from the same place. And here is something that needs to be said right at the beginning, with honesty and without cheap spirituality. The problem is not a lack of strength. The problem is not a lack of discipline. The problem is not a lack of faith. The problem is the place you are living from. Because almost every human restart fails for the same reason. It tries to change the path without changing the point of departure. And that creates a silent cycle of frustration. You try to move forward, but something inside you continues to operate from the same old center, the same fear, the same pressure, the same sense of insufficiency, the same need to prove your worth, the same attempt to control everything so you do not get lost again. And that is exhausting. It exhausts not only the body, but the soul. It drains not only emotions, but hope itself. Perhaps you are tired today, not because you do too much, but because you are living from the wrong place. And perhaps this is one of the most liberating and confronting truths you can hear. Jesus understood this human pattern deeply. He knew this tendency to try to fix life without touching the center, to try to improve behavior without relocating identity, to try to start again while keeping the same self in command. And that is exactly why the restart he taught is so different from the restart the world practices. People try to start over by changing what they do. Jesus taught people to start over by changing where they live from. People try to turn the page while keeping the same identity. Jesus taught that some pages only change when the entire book changes. That is why many of his words sounded strange, radical, exaggerated, even uncomfortable. When he said, "If anyone wants to come after me, let him deny himself," he wasn't talking about self-hatred. He was talking about self-relocation. He was talking about leaving the old center, about stepping out of the place from which you have always tried to sustain yourself, about allowing a new center to be established. And perhaps this is the restart you have never practiced. You tried to improve the old self. Jesus invites you to be born into a new self. You tried to fix old patterns. Jesus invites you to leave the place where those patterns are born. You tried to discipline behaviors. Jesus invites you to transform identity. That is why he said something that leaves no room for comfortable interpretation. You must be born again. Not adjusted, not reformed, not improved through more effort. Born again. And being born again is not starting another phase of the same life. It is beginning to live from an entirely different place. Perhaps you have started over many times throughout your life, but perhaps you have never truly restarted. Because the restart the world teaches is horizontal, more effort, more methods, more control, more discipline. The restart Jesus teaches is vertical, a new center, a new source, a new inner place. That is why when he began to teach publicly, he did not invite people to a course. He did not offer a personal improvement plan. He did not present a self-development system. He called people into a crossing, Follow me. Not learn from me, not observe me, not watch from a distance. Follow me. In other words, come live from where I live. And perhaps that is exactly what you need right now. Not another plan, not another goal, not another attempt, but an internal relocation. A movement from fear to trust, from lack to belonging, from control to surrender, from survival to life. And that changes everything. Because when you live from the wrong place, even the right things become heavy. Even dreams turn into pressure. Even faith becomes effort. Perhaps you are tired today, not because you do too much, but because you are living from the wrong place. And perhaps this is one of the most liberating and confronting truths you can hear.
He was not offering a vacation. He was offering a change of center. He was saying, in other words, come live from another place. And here, I need to be very clear with you, lovingly and truthfully. If you restart this season of your life from the same internal place as before, you may change the scenery, but you will repeat the storyline. Jesus does not want you looping. He wants you crossing over. That is why before we go any further, I need to tell you something important. At the end of this series, we're going to pray together. Not a generic prayer, not a prayer asking for strength, not a prayer trying to change. It will be a prayer of repositioning, a prayer to relocate the internal center, to close old cycles, to consciously choose a new place of existence before God. And this prayer will be prayed here every day, not as empty repetition, but as permanence, because understanding this intellectually does not sustain transformation. You must inhabit it. Now stay with me, because before we pray, you need to understand. And what you need to understand next is why almost everyone restarts and almost no one truly changes. If you observe carefully, you will begin to notice a quiet, almost invisible pattern that runs through nearly every human attempt at starting over. People change their routines, they change their environments, they change their schedules, they change their commitments, they change their promises. Some even change their relationships, yet they continue living from the same internal place that produced the life they are trying to escape. And this is where most people get lost without realizing it. Because the problem was never only what you did. The problem has always been from where you did it. It is like trying to clean the water of a polluted river by pouring buckets of clean water into it without ever going to the source. For a brief moment, the water looks clearer. For a while, things seem better. But inevitably, everything returns to the same condition. Why? Because the source was never touched. Jesus always went to the source. When he wanted to transform someone, he did not begin by correcting behavior. He did not start by listing mistakes. He did not open with demands or performance expectations. He began by revealing identity. This alone sets him apart from nearly every system we are accustomed to. We live inside an inverted logic. We believe that if we do the right things long enough, we will eventually become the right people. Jesus taught the opposite. When you begin to see yourself from the right place, your actions naturally realign. That is why when he looks at Simon and says, "You are Peter," he is not describing who that man is in that moment. Simon was still unstable, still impulsive, still inconsistent, still insecure, still full of inner contradictions. Yet Jesus calls him rock before he ever becomes one. Why? Because restarting does not happen when you act differently. It happens when you begin to see yourself differently. This is a key almost no one understands consciously. Most people try to change what they do while preserving the same internal image of who they are. And this creates a permanent inner conflict. You attempt to behave like someone new while still believing you are someone old. And sooner or later, you return to behaving like what you believe yourself to be. Not because you are weak, but because identity always outlasts effort. Jesus understood this deeply. That is why he said, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." The heart, in his language, was not emotion. It was the internal reservoir of identity, the place where your deepest beliefs about yourself, about God, and about life are stored. If that reservoir does not change, nothing changes permanently. Perhaps you are starting this season of your life exhausted, not because you do too much, but because you have been trying to sustain yourself for too long. Jesus would say something simple and liberating to you. You were never created to be the source of your own life. That is why he said, "Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst again." He was not speaking only about emotional relief. He was speaking about ending this desperate internal search for fulfillment, this endless race to feel whole, this constant attempt to prove sufficiency, this hidden anxiety that you are never quite enough. When the source changes, the way you live changes, and that produces a restart that does not depend on motivation. Motivation fluctuates, emotion fades, energy rises and falls, but identity sustains. Perhaps you have been waiting to feel something before changing something. Jesus taught the opposite. You do not wait to feel peace in order to trust. You trust, and peace grows. You do not wait to feel safe in order to rest. You rest, and safety deepens. You do not wait to feel love in order to love. You love, and love reveals itself. Jesus never asked people to wait until they felt ready to follow him. He said, "Follow me," and transformation happened along the way. Perhaps you have spent years waiting for the right moment, waiting to feel ready, waiting for more faith, waiting for more strength. Jesus would say to you, you do not feel ready and then restart. You restart, and readiness emerges. But restarting in the kingdom is not changing activities. It is changing your inner location. And that invitation is in front of you now. Not as pressure, not as demand, not as expectation, but as crossing. Here is something that needs to be said clearly. Once you understand this, you cannot go back to living unconsciously. You begin to notice when you are slipping back into the old place, the place of hurry, pressure, fear, comparison, constant proving. And now you have a choice. You can notice and return. Because true restarting is not an event, it is a habitation. Jesus did not come to give you spiritual techniques, he came to offer you permanence. That is why he said, "In my Father's house are many dwelling places." He was not only speaking about a distant future, he was speaking about states of living, inner positions, places of rest. Perhaps you have lived much of your life as someone always passing through, always uncertain, always provisional, always trying not to fail so you do not lose everything. Jesus offers you home. And when you live from that place, everything changes. You no longer enter days trying to survive them. You enter as someone who belongs. You no longer face challenges trying to endure them. You face them as someone who crosses with companionship. You no longer approach relationships trying to protect yourself constantly. You engage as someone already secure. This changes your decisions. You begin to say no without guilt, to say yes without fear, to wait without anxiety, to act without urgency. Because you are no longer trying to save yourself. You live from salvation, not toward it. That is why the restart Jesus teaches is not something you think. It is something you choose, something you cross, something you embody. And this brings us to something even deeper. Because once the center changes, resistance often appears. Not external resistance, but internal resistance. The old place does not give up easily. The mind tries to pull you back. Habits try to reclaim authority. Old narratives try to reassert themselves. You always fail. You never finish. You are behind. You are too much. You are not enough. These voices are not proof that nothing changed. They are proof that something did. Because identity shifts before behavior stabilizes. And this is where many people get discouraged unnecessarily. They think, if I were really changed, I wouldn't feel this anymore. But Jesus never promised instant silence. He promised a new center. The difference now is this. The voice no longer owns you. The fear no longer defines you. The fall no longer expels you. Because you no longer live trying to arrive, you live from arrival. This does not make the journey easy, it makes it honest. You still grow, you still learn, you still mature. But now growth flows from security, not desperation. Jesus never said, "Remain perfect in me." He said, "Remain in me." And remaining is not passive. It is a daily choice of location, a daily return, a daily inhabiting. That is why he spoke so often about abiding, dwelling, remaining. Because where you live from shapes everything. Your reactions, your pace, your expectations, your resilience. Perhaps you are beginning to realize something important now. You were never lacking strength, you were lacking place. You were not weak, you were mispositioned. You were not incapable, you were disconnected. You were not lost, you were living from a source that could never sustain you. Jesus is calling you back to the source, not as someone returning ashamed after failure, but as someone who finally understands where they always belonged. And this leads us to the most delicate and powerful part of this restart. Understanding changes perspective. Choosing changes destiny. Now that you understand that the restart Jesus teaches is not about trying again, but about living from another place, something subtle begins to happen inside you. Everything becomes simpler and at the same time more serious. Because once you see this, you cannot pretend you didn't. You may still repeat old behaviors for a while. You may still stumble into familiar habits. You may still feel the same fears rise unexpectedly, but you are not the same. And this changes the nature of the journey. Failure no longer defines you. Falling no longer expels you. Struggle no longer disqualifies you. Because you are no longer living to reach a place, you are living from a place. This distinction changes everything. Jesus never invited people into a technique. He never offered a spiritual optimization method. He never promised a life without conflict or resistance. He offered a place. That is why his invitation was always relational, not instructional. Remain in me. Not learn my strategies, not replicate my behaviors, not memorize my teachings.
Remain. Because when you remain, you change soil. And everything that grows in new soil grows differently. Perhaps you are beginning to recognize something you never fully named before. Your deepest exhaustion never came from doing too much. It came from trying to sustain yourself, from carrying the weight of being strong all the time, from trying to be sufficient at all times, from attempting to hold your life together using internal resources that were never designed to carry that load. And that kind of effort slowly erodes the soul. Jesus would say to you today something deeply liberating. You were never created to be the source of your own life. That is why he said, "Whoever drinks the water I give will never thirst." He was not talking only about emotional satisfaction. He was talking about the end of this constant inner chase, this endless attempt to fill emptiness with effort, control, achievement, or approval. This quiet panic that you must keep producing in order to remain valid. When the source changes, the way you exist changes, and that creates a restart that does not depend on motivation,
Motivation is unstable. Emotion fluctuates. Energy rises and falls, but identity holds. Perhaps you have lived waiting to feel something before changing something. Jesus taught the opposite. You do not wait to feel peace in order to trust. You trust, and peace begins to form. You do not wait to feel safe in order to rest. You rest, and safety takes root. You do not wait to feel loved in order to love. You love, and love becomes visible. Jesus never asked anyone to feel ready before following him. He said, "Follow me," and everything transformed along the way. Maybe you have waited a long time for the right moment, waited to feel stronger, waited to feel more confident, waited to feel more spiritual, waited to feel more worthy. Jesus would say, "You do not feel ready, and then you begin, and readiness grows." But again, beginning in the kingdom is not changing activities, it is changing location. And here is where the journey becomes more honest, because when the center shifts, resistance often appears. Not external resistance, internal resistance. The old place does not surrender quietly. The mind pulls you back. Old habits attempt to reclaim authority. Familiar narratives try to reassert control. You always mess this up. You never finish. You are behind. You are too late. You are not enough. These voices do not mean nothing has changed. They mean something has. Identity shifts before behavior stabilizes. This is where many people lose courage unnecessarily. They assume that real change would eliminate all internal noise. But Jesus never promised instant silence. He promised a new foundation. The difference now is not the absence of struggle. It is the absence of condemnation. The voice no longer owns you. Fear no longer defines you. Mistakes no longer remove you, because you are no longer living to prove something. You are living from something already given. This changes how you relate to time. When you live from the old center, time feels like an enemy. You are always late, always behind, always running out. But when you live from a new place, time becomes a space for growth, not a threat. You stop rushing transformation. You stop panicking about pace. You stop comparing your process to others. You understand that formation is not hurried. Jesus never rushed anyone's transformation. He walked, he stayed, he waited, he remained, and he invited people to do the same. This also changes how you relate to effort. Effort is no longer about earning, it becomes expression. You no longer obey to be accepted, you obey because you are. You no longer serve to prove loyalty, you serve because love flows. You no longer pursue discipline to fix yourself, you pursue discipline to align with life. The center determines the meaning of everything you do. The same action done from different places produces completely different outcomes. Prayer from fear becomes begging. Prayer from belonging becomes conversation. Service from insecurity becomes burnout. Service from identity becomes joy. Faith from pressure becomes anxiety. Faith from rest becomes trust. Perhaps you are realizing now that much of what exhausted you was not what you were doing, but why you were doing it. Jesus did not come to remove effort. He came to relocate effort, to move it from desperation to participation. This also reshapes how you handle failure. When you live from the old place, failure confirms your worst fears. See, you never change. See, you don't deserve this. See, you were foolish to hope. But when you live from a new center, failure becomes feedback, not identity. You learn, you adjust, you return. You do not collapse, because your value is no longer tied to performance. Jesus never removed Peter's failures. He redefined Peter's foundation. That is why Peter could fall and still return. That is why restoration did not require starting from zero, because zero no longer existed. Grace had replaced the starting point. And this leads us to something deeply important. Once the center changes, you can't live on autopilot anymore. You begin to notice when you are slipping back into the old place, the place of hurry, the place of self-pressure, the place of comparison, the place of control. And now you have awareness, and awareness creates responsibility. Not responsibility as a burden, but as freedom. You can return, because restarting is no longer a dramatic event. It is a daily return to the place you belong. Jesus did not say, "Visit me occasionally." He said, "Remain is not intensity, it is consistency. It is choosing the same place again and again." And here is where many people misunderstand permanence. They assume permanence means perfection.
But permanence is not about never leaving. It is about always knowing where to return. A child may wander, but knows home. That is the posture Jesus offers. This also changes how you relate to God. God is no longer the one you approach cautiously after success or avoid after failure. He becomes the place you live from, the atmosphere you breathe, the ground beneath your feet. That is why Jesus did not teach people to visit God. He taught them to abide. And abiding reshapes your inner dialogue. You begin to speak to yourself differently, not because you memorized affirmations, but because the source of your voice changed. The loudest voice is no longer accusation, it becomes truth. You begin to hear, "You are not late, you are not forgotten, you are not disqualified, you are being formed." This does not make you passive, it makes you grounded. And grounded people move with clarity. They do not rush decisions. They do not cling to outcomes. They do not panic when things are unclear, because they trust the place they live from. This is what Jesus meant when he spoke of peace that surpasses understanding. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of grounding. Peace as location. And now we arrive at something crucial. Changing location is not something you do once. It is something you practice. Not as effort, but as awareness. You notice when you shift back into self-sufficiency. You notice when you drift into fear-based action. You notice when approval begins to drive you again, and you return. This is not regression, it is formation. Spiritual maturity is not about never drifting. It is about drifting less and returning faster. And that changes the entire rhythm of your life. You stop dramatizing mistakes. You stop magnifying weakness. You stop interpreting struggle as failure. You see everything as part of formation. Jesus never treated people as projects. He treated them as participants. He walked with them, and he is walking with you now. This brings us to a threshold. Understanding this shifts perspective. Choosing to live from this place reshapes your future. But there is one more layer that needs to be crossed, because living from a new center will inevitably challenge old attachments. Old identities resist displacement. Old comforts protest relocation. Old patterns fight for survival. And this is where many people retreat, not because the new place is wrong, but because the old place is familiar. The known can feel safer than the true. Jesus never minimized this cost. He said, "Whoever wants to save his life will lose it," not as threat, but as truth. You cannot keep living from the old center and expect the fruit of the new one. At some point, you choose, not once, repeatedly. And this is where freedom deepens, because when you stop trying to preserve the old self, the new life begins to breathe. And that is where we are going next. Because now that you see the place, the question becomes, how do you remain there when everything tries to pull you back? Once you recognize the place Jesus invites you to live from, a new question inevitably arises. Not, is this true, but how do I stay here? Because insight alone does not sustain permanence. Moments of clarity are powerful, but they are not durable by themselves.
The old center has gravity, it has history, it has habits, reflexes, emotional muscle memory, and it does not disappear simply because you understood something. Remaining is not automatic. Remaining is intentional. Jesus never assumed that people would stay simply because they had encountered truth. That is why his most repeated instruction to those who followed him was not believe more, but remain. Remain in me. Not once, not occasionally, not when it feels easy. Remain. This implies that something will constantly attempt to pull you away, and it will. The pull does not always come from obvious temptation or dramatic failure. Often it comes from subtler forces: urgency, pressure, expectation, fear of falling behind, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing relevance, fear of disappointing others. These forces do not announce themselves as enemies. They present themselves as responsibilities. And if you are not aware, you begin to drift, not away from faith, but away from center. You still pray, you still believe, you still serve, but you are no longer living from the same place. This is one of the most dangerous forms of spiritual displacement because it looks functional. You appear active, productive, committed, yet internally you are once again self-sustaining. This is why Jesus emphasized awareness more than intensity. He did not say, work harder to stay close. He said, watch and pray. Watch means notice. Notice where you are operating from. Notice what is driving you. Notice what has become urgent again, because urgency is often the first sign that the center shifted. When you live from the old place, everything feels urgent. You must respond immediately. You must fix everything now. You must decide quickly. You must prove yourself constantly. Urgency feeds the illusion that everything depends on you. Remaining dissolves that illusion. When you live from a new center, you still act, but you are no longer frantic. You move without panic. You decide without pressure. You engage without losing yourself. This is not passivity, it is alignment. One of the clearest signs that you have shifted back to the old place is how you relate to control. From the old center, control feels like safety. If you manage everything, nothing can fall apart. If you anticipate every outcome, you will not be surprised. If you hold everything tightly, you will not lose it. But control is exhausting because reality resists domination. Jesus never taught control. He taught trust. Not blind trust, but relational trust. Trust rooted in knowing where life comes from.
Remaining in Him means releasing the illusion that you are responsible for holding everything together. That illusion is seductive because it makes you feel important, but it also slowly destroys peace. Jesus did not say, apart from me, things will be harder. He said, apart from me, you can do nothing. Not as condemnation, but as clarity. You can function, you can produce, you can achieve, but you cannot live. Life flows from connection, not from competence. Remaining, then, is not about managing behavior, it is about guarding source. And this requires a different kind of discipline, not discipline of performance, but discipline of attention. Where is my attention resting? What am I rehearsing internally? What story am I telling myself about this moment? Because attention reveals location. If your attention is consumed by proving, fixing, defending, or comparing, you are no longer remaining. You are striving. Striving is not effort, it is effort disconnected from rest. Jesus worked constantly, but he was never striving, because his source was stable. Remaining also requires learning how to recognize the voice of the old center. The old center speaks fluently. It sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. It sounds mature. You should handle this alone. Don't bother God with this. You need to be stronger. Others depend on you.
If you don't do this, it won't get done. These thoughts do not feel rebellious, they feel noble, but they quietly remove you from dependence. Jesus never glorified independence, he glorified union. And union requires humility, not the humility of weakness, but the humility of truth. The truth that you are not the source. Remaining also means redefining what success looks like. From the old place, success means outcomes, growth, numbers, recognition, progress that can be measured and displayed. From the new place, success means alignment, faithfulness, presence, obedience to direction, even when results are unclear. Jesus never measured success the way the world does. Some of his most important moments produced no visible fruit. People walked away, crowds diminished, misunderstanding increased, yet he remained, because he was not driven by validation, he was anchored in the Father. If you attempt to remain while still using old metrics, you will feel constantly torn. You will wonder if you are doing enough, if you are growing fast enough, if you are reaching enough people, if you are falling behind. Remaining requires releasing metrics that were never meant to govern your life. This does not mean you ignore growth. It means growth no longer defines you. Another force that pulls people back to the old center is comparison. Comparison is subtle because it disguises itself as inspiration. You look at others and think, I should be further along. I should be more disciplined. I should be more impactful. I should be more spiritual. Comparison always relocates center because it shifts your reference point. Instead of living from who you are becoming, you begin measuring yourself against someone else's process. Jesus never compared his disciples to one another. He spoke to each individually because formation is personal. Remaining means allowing God to define your pace. Your pace will not match others. Your journey will not mirror someone else's. Your calling will not unfold on the same timeline. And that is not a flaw. It is design. Comparison always produces either pride or despair. Neither sustains permanence. Remaining also involves learning how to return quickly, because you will drift. Not intentionally, but gradually. A stressful season, an unexpected responsibility, a season of fatigue, a disappointment, and suddenly you notice tension rising again, pressure returning, self-talk hardening, urgency creeping back. This is not failure. This is information. The question is not, did I drift? The question is, how fast do I return? Spiritual maturity is not about never leaving center. It is about shortening the distance back. Jesus never shamed his disciples for drifting. He redirected them. Why are you afraid? Do you still not understand? Come away and rest. These were invitations, not rebukes. Remaining is sustained by return, not perfection. This also reshapes how you approach spiritual practices. Prayer, scripture, silence, worship, these are no longer tools to achieve something. They become ways of recentering. You do not pray to become worthy. You pray to remember where you live from. You read scripture not to impress God. You read to recalibrate perception. You do not worship to generate emotion. You worship to realign affection. Practices do not create center. They protect it. Another critical aspect of remaining is learning how to live with unanswered questions. The old center demands clarity. It wants certainty before obedience. It wants guarantees before trust. The new center tolerates mystery. It moves with partial information. It obeys without full explanation. Jesus often invited people to follow without telling them where they were going, not because he was vague, but because trust cannot be outsourced to certainty. Remaining means resisting the urge to resolve everything immediately. Some answers come only after obedience. Some clarity arrives only after movement. Remaining also requires learning how to receive. This sounds simple, but it is deeply confronting. Many people are comfortable giving, serving, helping, supporting, providing, but receiving exposes vulnerability. It admits dependence. Remaining requires learning how to receive grace daily, not as a concept, but as sustenance. Grace is not only forgiveness, it is supply, strength for today, wisdom for this moment, peace for this decision. When you stop receiving, you start compensating, and compensation leads back to striving.
Jesus modeled receiving constantly. He withdrew to pray. He accepted help. He allowed others to serve him. Remaining means allowing yourself to be sustained, not occasionally, continually. This also changes how you view rest. From the old place, rest feels irresponsible. There is always more to do, more to fix, more to accomplish. From the new place, rest is obedience. Jesus rested deliberately, not because he was tired, but because rest protected center. If you do not choose rest, urgency will choose for you, and urgency never rests. Remaining is protected by rhythms, not rigid schedules, but intentional pauses. Moments where you remember, I am not the source. I am not alone. I am not late. I am not behind. These reminders recalibrate your nervous system. They pull you back to truth. Remaining also reshapes how you engage conflict. From the old place, conflict threatens identity. You must win, you must defend, you must justify. From the new place, conflict becomes information. You can listen without collapsing. You can speak without attacking. You can disagree without fear, because your worth is not at stake. Jesus could confront without hostility. He could be silent without weakness. He could speak truth without needing to control the response. That stability came from center. And finally, remaining requires patience with formation. Transformation is not linear. There will be progress and pause, insight and confusion, breakthrough and resistance. Remaining means staying present through all of it, not abandoning the process because it feels slow, not returning to old strategies because results are delayed. Jesus never rushed formation. He trusted the process, and he trusts it in you. This is where many people sabotage themselves. They experience genuine shift, but abandon it because it does not feel dramatic enough. Remaining is quiet, deep, unimpressive to observers, but it reshapes everything. And this brings us to the next threshold, because remaining is not only about resisting pull, it is about allowing the new place to reshape how you relate to the world. Relationships, work, calling, suffering, joy. Living from a new center eventually changes how you carry everything. And that is where we're going next. Because once you remain, you begin to live differently, not intentionally, but naturally. There comes a moment in every true transformation when effort steps back and life steps forward. Not because the journey is finished, but because something fundamental has settled. You are no longer trying to become someone. You are no longer fighting to arrive. You are no longer living in preparation mode. You are living from a place. This is the quiet fruit of remaining. When the center changes and you stay there long enough, life begins to reorganize itself around that center, not through force, but through alignment. You do not wake up one day feeling radically different. You wake up one day responding differently. What once triggered panic now invites discernment. What once demanded control now allows trust. What once felt unbearable now becomes carryable. Not because circumstances improved, but because location did. Living from the new place does not remove responsibility, it redeems it. You still work, you still decide, you still face pressure, uncertainty, conflict, and limitation,
But responsibility is no longer confused with identity. You no longer are what you carry what has been entrusted to you. And this distinction changes how you move through the world. From the old place, life feels like a test you are constantly failing. From the new place, life feels like a path you are walking with someone. Jesus never promised his followers a life without weight. He promised a different way of carrying it. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Not because the burden disappears, but because the distribution of weight changes. You are no longer carrying life alone. Living from the new place reshapes how you relate to suffering. Suffering no longer feels like proof that something is wrong with you. It becomes part of formation, not condemnation. You stop asking, "What did I do wrong?" You start asking, "What is being formed?" Jesus never interpreted suffering as disqualification. He interpreted it as participation. Participation in maturity, participation in compassion, participation in dependence. From the new place, suffering does not isolate you. It deepens you. It makes you slower to judge, more patient with weakness, more aware of grace. You begin to recognize that some depths can only be reached through pressure. And because your center is secure, pressure no longer destroys you, it shapes you. Living from the new place also transforms how you love. Love no longer becomes a transaction. You are no longer loving to be needed, no longer loving to be chosen, no longer loving to secure your place. You love from fullness. And fullness is not loud, it is steady. You stop chasing affirmation, you stop fearing abandonment, you stop overgiving to prevent loss, because love no longer threatens your survival. Jesus loved freely because he was rooted. He could give himself without losing himself. That's the kind of love that flows from a stable center. Living from the new place also reshapes how you relate to calling. Calling is no longer pressure to become something impressive. It becomes obedience to what is yours to carry. You stop asking, "How big is my impact?" You start asking, "Am I faithful where I am?" Jesus never chased visibility. He responded to assignment. Some seasons were public, some were hidden, some were misunderstood. He remained the same. Living from the new place frees you from the tyranny of relevance. You no longer need to be seen to be secure. You no longer need recognition to feel validated.
You become free to do small things with great presence, and presence carries weight that performance never will. This also changes how you relate to success. Success no longer inflates you. Failure no longer collapses you, because neither defines you. You begin to experience a quiet stability that is not dependent on outcomes. This stability is rare, and it is deeply attractive, not because it draws attention, but because it offers rest to those around you. People feel safe near grounded individuals, not because they have answers, but because they are not frantic. Living from the new place reshapes leadership. Whether you lead formally or informally, your presence changes. You stop leading from urgency. You stop leading from fear of loss. You stop leading from self-protection. You lead from clarity. You listen more. You react less. You speak with weight rather than volume. Because leadership flows from center, not from title. Jesus never forced authority. It flowed from alignment. Living from the new place also reshapes how you face the future. The future no longer feels like a looming demand. It becomes a space of trust. You stop obsessing over where you will be in 5 years. You stop panicking about missing something important. You stop fearing the unknown, because you trust the place you are walking from. Uncertainty no longer threatens you. It invites reliance. Jesus never gave his disciples full maps. He gave them himself, and that was enough. Living from the new place also reshapes how you relate to yourself. Your inner dialogue softens, not because you lowered standards, but because you changed posture. You stop attacking yourself for being human.
You stop interpreting weakness as failure. You stop punishing yourself for learning slowly. You treat yourself with the patience of formation. This does not make you passive. It makes you honest, and honesty accelerates growth more than self-criticism ever will. Living from the new place means you no longer need to dramatize your journey. You stop announcing every breakthrough. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop measuring progress obsessively. You trust the process. Because you trust the place. And now something very important needs to be said clearly. Living from the new place does not mean you will never return to the old one. There will be moments of fear, moments of pressure, moments of fatigue, moments of loss. You may feel yourself slipping back into self-reliance. You may notice urgency rising again. This does not mean you failed. It means you are human. The difference now is this: you know where to return. And you return without shame. You do not restart from scratch. You recenter. This is what grace makes possible. Grace does not erase responsibility. It restores location. Jesus did not teach his disciples how to never fall. He taught them how to return. And return is the heartbeat of a lived faith. Now, this brings us to the final truth of this journey. The re-beginning Jesus offers is not an event. It is not a moment. It is not an emotional experience. It is not a dramatic turning point. It is a habitation, a chosen place of existence, a daily posture, a lived orientation. You do not wake up every day trying to change your life. You wake up choosing where to live from. And from that place, life changes. Quietly. Gradually, irreversibly. This is why many people search endlessly for transformation and never find it. They keep asking, what should I do next? Jesus keeps asking, where are you living from? Because behavior follows location. Effort follows identity. Fruit follows root. You do not fix fruit. You change soil. And soil is not changed once. It is inhabited, tended, returned to. This is the invitation before you. Not to try harder. Not to become better. Not to prove anything. But to live from trust, from belonging, from sonship, from rest. Jesus did not come to give you a better version of your old life. He came to give you a new one. Not later. Now. Not someday. Here. And the question that remains is not whether this is true. The question is whether you will choose to live from this place again and again and again. Because when the place changes, everything changes. And when you remain, life begins to flow. Not because it is easy, but because it is real. And real life always flows from the right place.